Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. It's the first of two for the brand new week. We're recording on a date known as, if my iPhone will play ball, 25th of May. There we go. That's the date that we've decided to do the first of two in this week as we end off the month of May with more reflections as to what's been in the news cycle concerning South African football. I have my two panelists, as always, joining me in Mazola, Molefe, and Jonty. Mark. Good day to you guys, and welcome to the discussion. Before we move forward, happy Africa Day to both of you and to everyone listening.
Happy Africa Day.
Don't sound too excited, guys. Here we go. Okay, so now the nation of South Africa got an update as far as what's happening with COVID. We've kind of been expecting that level 3 is on its way, and it's been confirmed that as of next week, Monday, the brand new month of June, we will be dropping to level 3. Lots of people excited, partly, I think mostly because the alcohol will be back on sale. Smokers still, SOL, the smokers still out of luck. But yes, Mazola, I know it's a big moment for you. You can't wait for your wine. And yeah, next week I'm sure you're gonna go buy a case, or you're gonna raid the Woolly section of the wine.
I'm getting in there. I mean, it was silly of Woolworths also to put that red tape there. I mean, it was unnecessary. They could have just closed the doors. They don't need to put.
What do you mean? Why shouldn't they treat you like a child?
They put tape there, like, oh, you naughty kid, don't come anywhere near this.
No,
door.
Exactly. You can't hold yourself back. You adults, you can't restrain yourself. We have to show you that this is bad. Amazing. Jonty, what are you looking forward to the most about lockdown level 3?
A beer.
Had enough of wine.
But yeah, maybe some wine. Well, there's been some wine drunk.
Yeah.
But the I'm just want to say that I'm not, until I see the shops open and the wine on the shelves.
You don't believe.
I don't smoke, but like the smokers saw when cigarettes were available for 24 hours or something, then they weren't anymore. So I'm just not holding my breath until Monday, and I actually see the wine for sale.
And your till slip.
I did order some wine online, so maybe that'll arrive as well.
There we go. Smart man. Okay, gents, let's get into what's been happening as far as the news cycle is concerned. Obviously, excitement around level 3, but to be perfectly honest, it doesn't really mean much for local football. I mean, we still got SAFA and the PSL kind of meeting, trying to find out a way forward. But in there wasn't any granular detail around how football will be affected. And of course, that'll probably come with the relevant ministers. But do you kind of see any wiggle room available for the footballing authorities after what's been announced for level 3? Let's start with you, Jonty.
Well, no, not really. I mean, I did raise it yesterday that it looks like there's going to be, it looks like it's impossible from what the president was saying, in terms of there being no sporting facilities are really allowed to be opened. Obviously with this football being a contact sport, it makes it especially difficult to get it underway. I mean, Germany have shown sort of the way forward. We've had 2 successful, as far as I know, fairly successful weekends of Bundesliga football. But they're at a different stage of the coronavirus outbreak. They're also, have done it in a super organized way. It remains to be seen if the PSL would be able to do it in the same way behind closed doors. They still have to make a presentation to government. Government would still have to approve it. Government seem to be, the sports ministry seem to be, I'm sure they've got, government in general has bigger priorities, but the sports ministry seems to be pretty slow in terms of, even with golf. I'm seeing now golf want to know from the Gazette whether golf's going to be allowed, and golf is like social distancing in the form of a sport.
Yeah.
and so if that can't be played, I don't see how football can. But I think we just have to wait and see. But my impression is that there's no way under level 3 that it's possible for football to be played. obviously the PSL may well have a different view, and they're supposed to have compiled this extensive report, but there's no evidence yet that the SAFA PSL task team have come up with a solution to that they feel they can present to government, and then football can be played. So I think we're waiting now, at least until level 2 before we'll be able to play, and whether that could be July. I don't know. I mean, from what the president said yesterday, like we could go back to level 4, we could go to level 2. We don't really know.
Yeah.
Going forward, what level we're going to be at, and until such time as the government deem it safe to play sport, then I don't think there's much the PSL or SAFA can do as it stands.
Yeah, I guess, Mazola, to Jonty's point, is that we're still going to have level 3 come through, and we can't assume that we're going to go directly to level 2 after that, if not remain on level 3. Worst case scenario, going back up to level 4. So as far as the league is concerned, they literally seem to just be running out of time as opposed to having solutions or workable solutions in place.
Look, I think the president's address last night, deals this whole thing a major blow, in the sense that, from what I understand, the league had been trying to somehow get to play behind closed doors, regardless of what level we were in. Because I think from the beginning, Minister Natim Teto had said,
Congratulations.
if they
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. Carry on.
If they had if they had been able to to give a proposal of how they can play with the safety regulations, safety and health regulations, then it is possible to play behind closed doors. I mean, this was even long before a lockdown was enforced, or I think the president had already announced a state of emergency, or thereabout, where Natim Teto had kind of indicated that, well, he's met with Dennis Jordan, he's met with Ivan Khoza, and it's possible for football to continue behind closed doors. And then we had level 5, then we had level 4, and now coming up with level 3. And my understanding was that the league had always been, sort of preparing to get this going, regardless of what level. But the reason why I'm saying I think the president's speech last night deals them a major blow, is because he's effectively said there can be no sports. And if you say that, as we've seen in other countries, where either it's a prime minister or the president or government has said no sports until July or September, they've essentially, effectively, like the French league, declared the league null and void. They've done the same in Holland. They've done the same in Belgium. And I think it's mainly because the government there has said you cannot have any sports activity really until such a time. And they felt they would have run out of time if they had to wait for the restrictions to be eased and for football to come back. So they'd rather start by preparing for the new season, rather than waste time trying to complete a season that might not actually take off or restart.
Right.
Here in South Africa, I think we're slowly heading in that direction, but we'll find out more this week, because obviously SAFA and the PSL are meeting tomorrow. It's not the 14 days deadline already, but I understand because there are certain proposals that have been put on the table. Therefore, it is for the league, the joint liaison committee, to discuss, and I think then for the PSL ESCO to then give feedback depending on what comes out of that meeting with SAFA. So it's going to be interesting, because I think SAFA possibly still hold their position that football should only be back on level 1. And I think the president's statement probably even furthermore sort of strengthens their case. But they've obviously decided to come together with the PSL and kind of have one voice to present a sort of proposal to the government, for the government to approve. But if I were to go worst case scenario, it's the government turning whatever proposal is presented down because of what the president said last night. But if they can prove extensively that they can play football behind closed doors, following safety regulations, using examples of other countries abroad that we've seen, then maybe they stand a chance. But I have a feeling we're slightly heading towards that sort of situation where it sort of becomes near impossible to finish the season. But let's wait and see.
But yeah, I guess essentially now that deadline that FIFA kind of imposed on the leagues, that's for August, I think it is. It starts becoming a bit more material now in the sense that time is, against the likes of the PSL to try and get a season wrapped up as opposed to just kind of calling it off.
Yeah, I mean, the longer this takes, remember, it's not just these deliberations between the FA and the league and the government as well. You have to remember that, Peter Mosimane just last week is one of the coaches again to come out to say we're going to at least need 2 to 3 weeks, if not a month, to actually get better,
Right.
I mean, if you look at the examples around the world, leagues like the La Liga, the Bundesliga, who've been back now for 2 rounds of football, had about 3 weeks, give or take, of trying to get back into some form of fitness. And the PSL likewise is going to need that. And remember that our season usually starts, from the beginning of when winter is about to the season's about to change. We move from winter to spring, and we finish just as we are heading into winter. Now winter is here. It's also a bit strange on the body. Yes, pre-season does take place during winter, but that's pre-season. There are ways in which clubs deal with that. They go to warmer climates and that sort of stuff, but you can't travel now, so you kind of stuck where you are. So there's those factors. There's the fact that the meetings are still ongoing, which then means more meetings about more meetings, and then a decision then has to be made if football is to continue. When do clubs go back, and when do they start training, and how long they're going to have? So you essentially have a situation where at this point football can't start early June. Football probably starts the last week of June or the first week of July. So you kind of still within that timeline, but the more meetings that we have, because remember, government are also dealing with other issues that are more pressing than football. Let's be honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if there's a proposal that's been put together by the JLC going to the government, that's also going to take time. It's not like the JLC puts together a document and tomorrow they are going to the government and having a meeting with the government. That's probably, it could be a week later, it could be 14 days later. You just never know. And then that eats into that August 2nd deadline.
Yeah. Jonty, I mean, the Citizen kind of ran with a story with Peter Mosimane, kind of opining on this reported Sun City team camps idea, saying who gets to stay at the Lost City, who gets to stay at Cabanas, kind of digging into the detail of that proposal.
I've stayed at the Royal Marang, and that's very nice.
It's not bad. Yeah, it's a nice hotel.
A bit boring, but I guess boring is fine if you're just training to play some football. But I think that there is that, but there's also the logistics of can they provide a contained environment as per the Bundesliga? Do they have? I mean, Safra's question previously, if there's enough medical doctors at the clubs for them to have sufficient health checks. Is there enough testing? Can we sort of copy the Bundesliga model, which seems to be working? Are we even able to do that? In the Bundesliga, a guy went to buy a toothbrush, a coach, and he was told he had to go into isolation for 2 weeks. Would be
for sure
able to be that strict. Also, our virus path seems to be peaking in the sense that we're going into winter now. I mean, in his speech, the president mentioned the spike is starting to happen that kind of expected. I just think there's too many issues here. And I don't think I've seen a coherent... I've seen people saying we've got an extensive report, but I don't think I've seen a coherent kind of argument for being able to start football up. There seem to be a lot of ideas, without anything solid. And maybe when SAFA and the PSL go to government, they will have a good detailed report on the matter, and we'll be able to get up and running. But as Mazola mentioned, it's going to take time. You need to train. You need, you need government approval. Government have already stalled in approving golf and tennis, who have submitted to government. So there's a timeline there. It's been, I don't know when they submitted, but it was a couple of weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And golf, I think, made a statement today basically saying we're waiting to see the Gazette to see if we can play, but I think that's more in hope than expectation. And I feel like, again, it goes back to the PSL not really being very clear. I'd like to see a statement, for example, from the PSL today saying we're aware of what the government have said, but we believe this, or we're, just to say something, because at the moment they just say nothing, and then
our imaginations are left to run wild.
It seems as if they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
I know that there's this meeting tomorrow between SAFA and the PSL, but and also those two bodies. It's probably, Mazola mentioned it as well, but as far as I can tell from SAFA, they are. I don't think they're really moving from their medical experts who say that only at level 1 will we be able to play football, and that is problematic, obviously, in terms of getting the PSL up and running when we're in level 3 and we don't 100% know where we're going. Well, level 3 from Monday.
Right. Okay, well, there you have it. I guess at the end of the day, the league are going to have to find a workable solution. If it is quarantining in one area of the country, maybe a warmer weather climate such as KZN, to try and, go against that whole, warm up and warmer climate in terms of preseason, just finding somewhere comfortable to get the players back into their best shape ahead of resuming and finishing off the current league season. We're moving on to news about acquisitions. And it seems now Tim Sugazi, he's laying it out clear for everyone to see that, hey guys, I've put in an offer, I've named my price, I'm now waiting on the league to kind of vet and approve the transaction. Whilst at the same time, in certain quarters, we're hearing that this deal has not even happened. So, you have a situation, Mazola, where the people of Bloemfontein seem to be kept under under wraps as to what's happening with their team, whilst the rest of us are getting news communicating that the sale is pretty much close to being done.
Yeah, I suppose yes and no, in the sense that I think Celtic are the one that has confused this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because I spoke to both Tim and Max Chabalala's or the Celtic lawyer rather, Mandla Chabalala, who is Max's cousin.
Right.
And Mandla told me exactly what Tim told me. They are awaiting bank guarantees, and then from there they will approach the PSL executive committee to approve the buying of a top flight status. And then a day or two after that, then the club releases a statement, sort of, all but saying that its own lawyer is lying, because he'd spoken to me, and I believe later that afternoon he was on radio pretty much saying the same thing that he'd said to me. And as we know by now, Tim has been basically everywhere. Tim is speaking to everyone about this now, especially on the back of the statement that came from Celtic last week. So I think Celtic are the ones that sort of are confusing the matter. You can't have your own lawyer who is privy to these discussions and documents and what have you, telling the press that a deal is going to happen. In fact, we have more than one offer and we are considering, and that's chances are Celtic will be sold. And then the club, his cousin, the next day saying, I've had no offer, I know nothing about offers, but I've had offers. It's also confusing. He said we're not selling the club, but we've had offers. They should just be frank with their fans. My guess is that there's been some sort of a confrontation in Bloem. We know how passionate the Bloemfontein Celtic fans are about that club and having it removed from that city, or that province. There's been several consortiums in the past that were keen on buying the club, and they've not been successful because Celtic fans either they toy or they start burning things in and around the city of Mangaung. So I don't know if possibly there could have been those types of confrontations again, or whether it's a case of where Max has completely had a change of heart. But Tim insists that there's no such. I mean, as recent as this weekend, he was in the news again talking about him still pursuing the purchase of a top flight club. So yeah, I mean, I suppose we will have to see as the days go on by. I mean, there's a Sunday deadline of May the 31st, in which Sukazi is supposed to have obviously presented bank guarantees and that sort of stuff to prove that he's got the money to buy the club. And on the 1st of June, then we can be able to see how the story sort of moves forward. And I'm pretty sure now Tim will be more than happy to give updates, because ever since the club Celtic has been denying that there are talks behind the scenes, Tim has been sort of determined to not hurt his own credibility and come out to say, we are talking and this is happening. So yeah, I don't know. But if you ask me, I mean, having spoken to the lawyer and to Tim, it's clear that there's something happening behind the scenes. Maybe Max has changed his mind. I don't know.
Okay, I mean, fair enough. We kind of understand, Jonty, like Max not wanting to shake the boat too much as far as, alienating those fans by making or confirming this truth to this, whereas Tim can easily buy this club and never have to set foot in Bloem and not deal with that uproar that will come from the supporters. So that maybe kind of makes sense. But then you hear the story about Lebu Mokoena, the businessman based in Pietermaritzburg, who's also now being linked with a possible hijacking of the Celtic deal by wanting to keep the club in Bloemfontein. Does that have much legs? What do we know about this guy?
I haven't personally heard about that. I did see the story, but apart from that, I haven't heard anything. I did speak to Tim Scarzi myself yesterday, and he reiterated what he's been saying all along. As Mazola mentioned, he reiterated that there are financial guarantees that need to be met by May 31st. After that, it goes to the PSL BOG for ratification. And then hopefully he's hoping, I think by the end of June, that he'll have ratification to go ahead and basically buy the franchise.
Is that something for the season, or how does that work? Is that going
for next season? No, I mean, once it's complete, it'll be from next season, whenever next season. Obviously, it's thrown a bit up in the air by everything that's going on because nobody quite knows when this season ends and the next one begins. But it's from the 2020-2021 season that Galaxy will, if this goes through it, they'll be playing in the ABSA Premiership. And he also confirmed to me that a radio station, I can't remember exactly which one, I think said that there was a deal signed in principle between Celtic and Sukazi on middle of March already. So if that deal is signed and if that deal is binding and he meets the financial guarantees, I don't see quite how anybody else can come in with an offer. What I read as 38 million offer or something from this Mokoena? Well, that's less than I've been told Sukazi is going to pay. So why would you sell? Unless you want to keep it in Bloemfontein. Obviously, Tim Sukazi will move the club to Mpumalanga. He's got no qualities. And so there has been in the past, there's supposedly something in the constitution that says you're supposed to spend a season in the same place, but that never happens. So, I mean, we saw with, for example, Black Aces immediately moved to Cape Town, and it doesn't seem to be set in stone, that particular rule. And so I don't know what exactly, as Mazola mentioned, is happening in Bloemfontein, but obviously it would be deeply sad for Bloemfontein Celtic to have to leave Mangaung or to cease to exist effectively because of the brilliant support there is for Celtic down there. And it's quite possible that the supporters have raised their concerns and that has led to Celtic making what was a absolutely bizarre statement last week, denying everything, which I think was a poor piece of public relations, because obviously there have been offers, and there has been a deal signed, as I understand it. So I don't know quite why they came up with that. Whether it's to appease fans, it can only do so in the very short term if the deal does go through.
Of course,
The way
we'll find out
the
at the
way
end of
I
the week.
see it, if financial guarantees are met at the end of May, Tim Sakazi expects to be able to purchase the Bloemfontein Celtic franchise, and TS Galaxy will play in the PSL next season,
Hectic.
the ABSA Premiership next season.
That's crazy considering what the Bloem Celtic players have been through. But I guess, if it does have to move forward, Mazola will probably see a blend of the current squad with some of the players that Tim already has at TS Galaxy. But a lot of futures will be kind of thrown up in the air, especially after such a crazy time as COVID. We're literally going to come out of it with Bloemfontein Celtic no longer being a ABSA Premiership club.
Yeah, I think should the deal happen, it will be exactly like sort of what happened with John Committee's buying Mpumalanga Black Aces. Although the difference here is that there is another club that exists in a lower division, and that's TX Galaxy. So is it a matter of the two clubs basically swapping statuses? That remains to be seen. But what I had been told was that, obviously Max Chabalala has no interest in continuing to be in football. Perhaps maybe someone else would take over the NFD status, with Max removing himself from excuse me from that entity. So, but in terms of the players and their contracts, especially because they are relocating, I think it's exactly what will happen with what John Committees did with Black Aces players. Some of them were obviously asked to relocate. As you remember, your Lebogang Manyamas and your Obringomas, and even the coach Mohsin Etugal, had been asked to sort of relocate along with the club, but then Mushin then changed his mind and took on a different project, if I remember correctly, and therefore Eric Tinkler was then appointed as the coach. You had some players whose contract, I think even Jackson Mabukhwani was one of the players that did not then want to relocate to Cape Town, and instead he moved on, and there were several others, whereas others did, your Thabo Nodada's, Obringoma and Lebogang Manyama did in fact relocate and move back to Cape Town. So you probably have a similar sort of situation, but how it plays out from here onwards, I think we'll know more next week. The more sort of timelines that we know about, the more we can kind of project when we will have more information. Because if there are no timelines and we're just waiting for the next season to this season to end and the next season to start, then we don't know whether we are coming or going. But the deadlines, I think, help, because then we can sort of know when to do the follow-ups and not sort of rehash kind of the same sort of quotes and stories from the same people, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay, no, makes sense, gents. Thanks for your musings on that one. Let's keep it moving as far as staying with topical bodies. I mean, SAFA came out with that crazy letter and salvo at Timothy Molobi last week. They've since kind of come back and walked it back, all with the intervention, it would seem, Mazola and Jonty, of the South African Football Journalists Association. And, they welcome SAFA's apology to the City Press journalists, Jonty. I guess it's a positive move to get some sort of accountability from SAFA and for them to be able to say, okay, sorry, we messed up.
I do think it's a positive thing that SAFA have got the apology from SAFA, as they mentioned in their statement earlier today. I did see Timothy Molobi obviously tweeting that he didn't see a response on the SAFA. He didn't see it published on the SAFA website.
Of course.
I think that's fair enough from Mr. Molobi, because, SAFA, it's all very well them apologizing to a journalist body on the one hand. On the other, maybe they should, I think if they made it more public, it would certainly seem perhaps more genuine. if they put it out on their website. I wasn't privy to that meeting, so Mazola was, so I'm sure he can talk more about SAFJA's meeting with SAFA. But yeah, I think that they certainly look that they have apologized in whatever way they've apologized, and it certainly was necessary, because that statement, as we mentioned on Thursday's podcast, was completely out of order and unnecessary, and really like not the way to behave, and they have acknowledged that. I'm sure Mazola can enlighten us on what happened in the meeting with SAFJA.
Yeah, how'd that go, Mazola?
Yeah, so I think from the weekend we began sort of a process, and by the way, we are still awaiting Mr. Jonty Max's membership to come there, so that he can be privy to such meetings. But anyway, we did begin a process over the weekend with Mr. Molobi talking about this, and I understand, fair enough, that he would have reacted the way he did, and to be fair to him, we sort of released the statement before SAFA would release theirs. And as I understand, I'm not sure if it's up yet, but our communication with SAFA is that they would also apologize, not behind closed doors between the four walls, but they would also, in the manner that they slandered Mr. Molobi and his colleague Daniel Mutuachai and the City Press, they would also sort of retract their statement on the same platform. I suppose by the time Mr. Molobi, had access or had seen our statement, SAFA had not done the same on their part, which would then be something that we would have to follow up, because the agreement was that both SAFJA and SAFA would release a statement with us acknowledging that we've had a meeting with the two parties, and SAFA has then issued an unreserved apology, and therefore would do the same on their platforms. So we await that. But I think this is the reason why such a body now exists, and hopefully we can, we don't always want to work on relationships that where bridges are burnt, but also we want to celebrate the good things as well. But I think this is, this was a good sort of a way into announcing ourselves as SAFJA having to deal with such a huge matter that affects us as journalists on the ground as well, and affects the association that we look to lead our football as the mother body. So Mr. Molobi, I think the apology from SAFA, as we understand, as we had that conversation, should have been published by now. If it hasn't,
it's not. 5 new items, including one about football clubs forced to rethink recruitment strategy as virus impacts transfer market. Interesting articles, but none of them a apology. Sorry.
Therefore, that is for the SAFJA chairman Velile Mnyandu to then follow up with SAFA about that one.
Okay. I hope you guys get it. It'll be great, because they need to match their energy, right? They had so much energy to write up a whole thing. If you just took like 10% of that energy and put it into an apology, I think that will probably go a long way. But it's good to see at least just this talking truth to power, kind of being allowed, Jonty. I mean, I don't know what they were expecting, Old SAFA, not to be taken to task with anything that they do. But I guess now they're realizing that, listen, if you're going to try and take a knock, you're going to take one back, in terms of us allowed to have an open and honest conversation about the state of our football.
Well, I do think that SAFA had an opportunity to reply properly to that article. They were given right of reply. And that only compounded their kind of the error of their ways in sort of hammering a journalist, because it wasn't as if the journalist didn't act in best practice. And he said here's a list of questions, please can you answer them, and they just were ridiculous in their statement. And there are a lot of allegations about SAFA and about Danny Jordan that are coming out on top of each other, and SAFA do need to I think, answer them properly. I mean, I mentioned this last week. Again, you guys sent me a link, I think, today to an article on Danny Jordan's visit to America, which is a whole nother. I remember that back when he went to America to supposedly sign a deal with the US Soccer Federation. There was a whole press release and nothing, and then there was no agreement that came out of that. There was no match against the USA, which some people thought might happen, and then it turned out, that this article suggests, and it's been mentioned to me before that Danny Jordan went to America with his lawyers to speak to the, authorities about this 10 million rand payment to Jack Warner's diaspora, shall we say?
Also known in his pocket. Yeah, he's
to the diaspora in the Caribbean. Worst excuse I've ever heard for a payment in my life. Yeah.
Hectic.
There's a lot of smoke, and it would be nice to get straight onto SAFA as opposed to them hammering journalists. That's what
we live in hope. I guess, hopefully there'll be channels of transparency that open up after your engagement, Mazola, as you stated, as SA's journos. Hopefully there'll be an effort to kind of correct whatever wrong narratives they feel aggrieved by SAFA. And like you say, Jonty, they were afforded an opportunity to come on record and kind of clear up the air. They didn't take it, which means the air is still smoggy and weird. And so we wait to see further clarification on these issues. But yeah, folks, that's pretty much what's been happening on the ground as far as local football is concerned. Some of the big newsmakers in recent times. We're going to reconvene in a couple of days' time later this week to then kind of focus in on what's happened since we last spoke, which is, of course, today. So, gents, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for your time and for your musings on what's been in the news cycle. And Jonty, get your membership sorted out, man. You got so much time. Last I checked, you're sitting at home doing nothing.
Thank you. Don't worry, I've been trying.
Oh, is it? Okay. So it's an administration thing. Okay, cool. Veli will clear it up for us on Thursday. Gents, thank you so much for your time. Have a good rest of your evening, and we'll reconvene in about 48 to 72 hours. Cheers.